This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Princess Posse? This is Steven and Ryan with Fantology Podcast. We are talking about Dungeon Crawler Carl, books 6 and 7. I know these are both long books. We could probably talk about them for a while, but for sake of scheduling, we're combining into one. I think we'll mostly talk about criticisms and kind of, things we like, didn't like, maybe higher level stuff, but get into some details to support our argument as we see fit. Right, Ryan?
Right. Yeah, at this point, we're both totally caught up with Dungeon Crawler Carl, meaning we've both read book 8. However, this episode will only contain information from book 6 and 7. Um, so it's it's going to be a little hard, I think, to withhold some of that information um, from book 8, just because there's so much that's happened.
Right,
But we'll
but
get through it.
but never fear, listeners, we will not spoil book 8 for you. I guess this could be a little bit of a book 8 primer, but we're not probably not going to go into a ton of detail. So if you want
Yeah.
details, check out the chapter summaries on the DCC wiki.
Yeah, that's a great place for it.
Yeah.
So it's Dungeon Crawler Carl's kind of been a whirlwind for me. I started reading book 1 on my move halfway across the country in January, and so now it's been 5 months, and I've read books 1 through 8, and so this new chapter of my life has Dungeon Crawler Carl has been a big part of it.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's taken you on a literal move across the
Hmm.
country. I started about the same time. I think I might have started a little bit before you, but yeah, it's been the last 5 or 6, been probably the majority of the reading in the past 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, and I've been pleasantly surprised. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was the first time you heard of Dungeon Crawler Carl back when we went to Dragonsteel Nexus in 2024?
I might have heard of it before, but that was like the first time it was really presented as like this is a serious thing when
Hmm.
Matt Dinniman was on some panels there. But just in the intervening year of 24 to 25 and now 26, like that guy's popularity and success is going crazy.
Isn't there like a TV? He's done some sort of deal for either TV show or
Yeah.
movie, right?
Yeah, it's like a TV show. Seth MacFarlane is the head guy on it, and apparently it's going to be live action, which seems kind of like a strange decision to me. I feel like this is perfect for animation. It's going to cost a ton to like really
Yeah.
get the total package of unhingedness you need to make this work, but I guess
Hmm.
that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it seems like you're gonna spend a fortune on CGI
Hmm.
just because it's like very few places are repeated, I guess, outside of like this safe room and um, Desperado Club. It's like
Right,
every floor is new. So, anyways, I digress. It's
right. It
it's a
does seem
big
like
Dungeon
a
Crawler Carl is a big deal right now, and I think for good reason.
yeah, super big deal. It's even becoming fairly mainstream. It's in airport bookstores. It's like the biggest thing in fantasy, along with, Brandon Sanderson continues to be, but this is getting up there fast.
Hmm.
So, that said, leading into, what do you think of books 6 and 7?
Um, I liked them. I feel like each one has kind of, like obviously Carl's leveling up. Um, but I do think that I liked book 6 maybe a little bit more than book 7. Um, and especially as I'm thinking back on them, there were like more memorable moments for me, I feel like, on from book 6. And book 7, honestly, like the outcome is pretty clear in my mind, but like a lot of, the steps that take to get there are a little bit
Hmm.
hazy for me. and I only read it like, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm totally with you there. I liked book six decently. I thought book seven was a fairly large disappointment for me.
Okay.
Because going through, I had been really looking forward to Faction Wars. It seemed like this awesome thing. There was cool structure around it. A lot of things were going to come to head. And I think book seven was just way too extra. I mean, even for
Okay.
Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is like such an extra series, it's like the definition of what the series is. There was just way too much packed into that book. And like you said, it kind of diluted what happened down to where there was so much going on. It was so unhinged that you couldn't even really,
Hmm.
like, looking back, it's hard to separate what happened. I mean, the book made sense. It wasn't so crazy, but yeah, I thought it really suffered from that. And without spoiling book eight, I thought book eight corrected this problem really well.
Okay. Yeah. I would disagree. I don't think that it was a disappointment in my mind. But I think that there I agree with some of your criticism where there's just so much packed into it that and I think this has like happened throughout like this series where it's like literally nonstop breakneck action. So and sometimes it's hard to follow exactly what's going on, but maybe not to the
Mm,
extent as in this inevitable ruin. And maybe if you're like reading it physically with your eyes rather than listening to the audiobook, it's a little bit easier to like follow and keep track of things. But I mean, the audiobooks are so well produced that I feel like you're almost missing out on something if you're not listening to the audiobooks.
hmm hmm Yeah, that is a good point because I listened to the first seven 100% and then I read eight 100%.
Okay.
So there is a difference there. But like you said, I feel like I don't miss too much in the audiobook. I feel like any audiobook experience, you're probably always missing at least a little bit of the story, unless you're very focused mentally. At least for me,
Hmm.
I'm always kind of sacrificing maybe a little bit of comprehension with audiobooks.
Right. And it's so convenient for like multitasking and I think like our adult
Mhm.
lives where,
Yeah, it's a big temptation.
yeah. Um, but do you want to jump into book six a little bit, or how do you want to talk about these? Break them down.
Yeah, let's start with six, and we'll try to spend about half the time there, and then go on to seven. So again, we've got the floor gimmick. The book six floor gimmick was the
Y
card game Magic the
Yu-Gi-Oh and
Gathering
Cuba.
Light, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. It was basically whatever card game you're most familiar with probably resonated
Hmm.
with you there.
Yeah. I like these. I like this gimmick. It was kind of creative and also horrifying, especially when Sister Inez um, flagged Pawn. Is that his name?
Pause, I think, yeah.
Pause. Yeah, that was kind of a horrifying moment,
hmm
like to consider. But there were so many hilarious moments, especially with Uzi Jesus and Asahano. And
Uh-huh.
what was their combined form? Like Lazarus,
Lazarus, a bang
Bang
bang.
Lazarus, Bang Bang. Um,
Uh,
it's like how do you like think of these things, Matt Dinniman? Like just the most like unholy, blasphemous, hilarious moments. It's really like just so creative. Or
yeah,
I mean, obviously it's influenced by like modern media, but I couldn't put them together like this. So out there.
the card game added some peak dungeon crawler Carl hilarity into the whole book. I thought that was well
Hmm.
done.
Right. And When I think back on these books, it's always like the moments that shine to me. Um,
Hmm.
and so what were some of the shining moments to you?
So I think this one was was significantly easier than book seven to track through.
Hmm.
The first big moment was the whole shrine repair thing in the ruined zombie town.
Right.
And then that leading off into the whole crown of the sepsis horror thing and the gods and kind of kicking off, or not kicking off, but like getting that plot line moving in earnest.
And that's when Carl gets slug pox, right? Is that what
Hmm.
it's called?
Right,
And
right.
you're like, what the? Another crazy thing that Matt Dinniman thinks of. You're like literal slugs coming out of your skin.
Hmm.
But honestly, it's like the smallest things that you don't expect to play a role. It plays a huge role in faction wars. Like this, the slug pox out, they infect like all the strippers with it and make like a little regiment of slugs.
Hmm.
And one of the slugs ends up killing one of the leaders of the other factions.
Right.
So,
And they're important for this book as well because they release the slugs at a key moment to like give them some cannon fodder. And so yeah, I I think one thing with these books that I'm maybe too critical of is I feel like there are so many elements here, and there are a lot of things that Dinneman has set up like books and books ago that we're supposed to think are important. And a lot of them don't end up being as important as I expect them to be based off of, how long they've been established, how long they've been hinted back on, et cetera, et cetera. We can kind of go through some examples or I'll go through some examples of this as we review. But I mean, it usually works out in book. Like the Slugpox thing was set up in this book and then it pays off. But I feel like he kind of struggles to really string these things along and have the full impact throughout the series. Like these two books finally resolved the whole Crown of the Sepsis horror thing. And like, yes, it was impactful, but at the same time, I don't know. I kind of feel like they found an easy way out. I feel like a lot of these things are set up to be really impactful and really dire and tragic. And they
mhm.
always kind of like weasel out of it. And Carl always comes up with this amazing plan in the background. We never know what it is, and then it works out. And it just seems like it goes too smoothly. Like Carl's a little OP in his problem-solving ability,
Yeah.
and for a series that's like built up to be so tragic and like this is the destruction of Earth and all these people are dying. Like I've never had a big gut punch of like this character that we love and care about dies. Like even through seven books, I don't feel like we've really had the full emotional impact of the situation. It's a little strange to
Right.
me.
I I mean, so I never like this series was never like played to me as like very tragic. It's kind of always been like a little bit more fun. Um, and it's mostly lived up to that. But I do get what you're saying when, it seems like there's not necessarily a huge sense of like consequences to Carl because it's like
Yeah.
the people he cares about the most are like Donut and Katya. And so like you sort of expect like maybe this is setting up to like Carl needs to choose Donut or Katya. And but they are able to, like you said, weasel their way out of this significant choice. Which I mean, I feel like usually the plans are they're kind of satisfying in the ways that he like weasels out of them. But it very much is like, Carl the hero is ends up mostly on top. And it's like each challenge he faces, he's like kind of able to like overcome overwhelming odds. Like in book five, when he kills all of the hunters, and then in book seven, when he wins faction wars. So it's like I you feel like in um there might be like a more balanced approach to these solutions where like Carl wins, but it's at like grave cost, you know?
Mhm.
And like I don't have a huge attachment to a lot of the like cookbook crawlers uh or cookbook authors like Justice Light, you know, he sacrifices
Mhm.
himself in the end of book 7 to like kind of combine the Nothing and Sheol and the main crawl world into one. But I wasn't super attached to Justice Light. Um, so it's like lots of minor characters sacrifice themselves, but ultimately it doesn't feel of like significant emotional consequence to me as the reader.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree. I think part of that is because there are so many characters, the cast has been kind of rotating and it's by and large mostly just Carl and Donut focused.
Hmm.
So a lot of the minor and supporting characters have either been kind of weak or they've just been sidelined for so long that it's hard to really it's hard to know who to attach importance to. There's some that are more lovable. I think like Louis is a character that if he was to die, then that would impact me more. Amani and Ali, I think, are favorites. So there are some that are done well, but yeah, a lot of these minor characters don't seem as important. Maybe Prepotente is kind of fun if he were to die. That would be sad.
Yeah, yeah,
And
I
then
agree. But Louis was close to dying, but he's a good example of,
yeah,
like they figured it out, right? They gave him like the replacement body parts from the flesh golem, and he was pretty much fine. Besides, now he breathes water.
uh yeah, it just feels like to some extent there's a little bit of punches being pulled, and it's a purposeful decision. It's almost like Matt Damon saying we can't have the the black comedy if it's too dark and tragic, but at the same time, he's putting Carl through this thing where his like emotional state is always on the brink. But I don't even believe this anymore because I don't think Carl's gonna emotionally collapse. He hasn't. I mean, it's hinted at. We're being told that he's like struggling and the waves are overlapping him and he's falling apart and losing himself, but I don't think that's really going to happen. Like, it
He
seems
always
like there's a
pulls
lot
it
of,
together.
yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It feels like there's this unwillingness to fully commit to the dark nature of the series to the point where I'm just kind of skeptical. I'm not sure if I should really be taking any of this stuff seriously because I kind of doubt that it's really gonna go there ever.
Right. And, maybe a lot of readers like that, This is like it's an action-packed story that's like with likable characters, and you're not really going to be left crying a lot because, one what your favorite character dies. Maybe not. I mean, but
Yeah.
this isn't this isn't Game of Thrones, where there's like everybody's life is on the line all the time. There's definitely plot armor for like our central cast of characters. Donut, Katya, and Carl definitely, and then to a lesser extent, I think like Amani, Ellie, um, Louis, Samantha, and Prepotente.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. And that's why I say I think this is a purposeful decision on Matt Dinoman's part where the brand of the series is dark comedy, never-ending action, and there's a tragedy to it, but it's mostly Carl's mostly observing the tragedy and not being because if you put Carl directly in and make him like the tragic victim or sideline him with grief or whatever, the story doesn't work. So you have to avoid that and just kind of continue on and have all this
Hmm.
stuff happening in the background. And say, Carl has the emotional fortitude of I don't know what, but he's able to withstand this stuff forever.
I mean, he is like basically the best crawler, and he kind of makes everything happen. Like without him, you know, the crawlers would still, they probably would have mostly died off way earlier. So, I mean, he's Earth's hero. He's
Mm,
humanity's hero, I should say.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So,
He's he's our chosen one.
I mean, if you need to suspend a disbel or suspend belief for a lot of the things that goes on in these stories. So
For pretty
that's
much everything.
for pretty much everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah, I think it's a choice. I don't think it's like objectively a bad thing about the series, but for me, I feel like it's a weakness. I would prefer maybe a more rounded story.
yeah. What did you think about in book six where like we actually Carl finds out what happens to his dad?
Yeah, so this is a good counterpoint because Carl does go through this emotional trauma of his dad and his brother that didn't know he had and how messed up that is and having to deal with all that. And it is slower for a bit here as he kind of deals with this. He puts it, moves on pretty dang quickly. But it
Yeah.
does add some emotional weight. And the same in book seven when Katya, when we get, her full backstory with
Hmm.
Annie and Carl's kind of along with that and they kind of bond over this. And so, we have those moments. So yeah, I mean there is quite a bit of heart to this series.
Yeah, I think there is, and it's not like they don't face any like emotional trials. They certainly do, and it's like if you weren't emotionally resilient, you wouldn't survive this far.
Mhm.
Not in the crawl. I would have probably been dead in my sleep before the first level even opened up.
You're not even gonna give yourself the the ability to enter the crawl?
Well, I mean, probably not. I just don't think like in the middle of the night I would be like out and about, right?
Mm,
Most people are sleeping. They
yeah,
just get
yeah.
crushed
At
instantly.
least most people in the Americas, right, would have been,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so moving on to other stuff in book six. So we get the whole, this is probably the most significant piece of lore drop about the residuals and everything that Carl learns at that homeless shelter. And I mean that we've had hints, but this is where I think we really get a sense of okay, here's what's going on in the background.
But I was still kind of confused through this point of the story.
Oh
I was
yeah.
like,
Yeah, it's not like fully explained, but
yeah, you're
at
like
least it's
Agatha's
something.
a residual, but she's a different type of residual. Like,
Uh-huh.
so, like even the definition of residual isn't cut and dry. But it is nice, to start getting like a lot of that, backstory of like who these characters are and um
And what's going on with the AI? What's the bigger picture
hmm
here?
hmm
Clearly the series is not just going to be, oh, and you know, Carl finally dies in floor 13 and this edition of Dungeon Crawler Earth is over and the story goes on. Like obviously this is like a linchpin event for
yeah.
the universe.
I mean, it's kind of shocking how things have like gone off the rails, but also like the structure has largely remained the same in that like, it's like progression fantasy where you're going from like level one to level two to level three to level four. You're not skipping
Hmm.
levels. I thought that, by book eight, um, like Carl would have been leading like some sort of galactic war with people, like flying around on spaceship, but like
Uh-huh.
who knows? That's where I thought this was headed up to this point.
Yeah, it seemed like kind of like a, well, without spoilers, almost like a Red Rising situation where each book kind of expands the
Hmm.
conflict and the character's role within it. But yeah, it does seem like we're stuck at least in the dungeon while the events of the dungeon and especially what the AI is doing affects the universe more and more. But yeah, I mean, it works to keep it in the dungeon because that was the set kind of promise of the book from book one. And so yeah, I think it'd be kind of weird if we were doing Galactic Rebellion by the end. I kind of like that we're keeping at least some of the structure.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like that's where I thought it was going, but I like where it's at now better. So obviously, Matt Dinniman should have been the author of this series and not me.
Yeah, you're not quite unhinged enough to you're close, but yeah,
I'm
not
working
enough.
on it, all right? I just
Uh-huh.
I need to figure out like ask Matt Dinniman like why how are you so unhinged? What can I do to practice this?
Yeah. What happened to you?
Yeah.
Uh,
But by the end of book seven, like most of the initial like conflict with like a lot of these alien factions that have been introduced, like a lot of the
mm,
antagonists have largely been, you know, defeated, right? Like the only one that at the end of book seven, I can't think like um what's the name of the or Prince
right, the orc guy?
yeah, what's the orc guy who was oh my gosh.
Yeah, too many names, but yeah, people know who we're talking about.
Um yeah, the prince that he obviously offended from the Skull Empire.
Hmm.
Um he's like the last one because they he outsmarts Wei Shin Jinx. Is that her name?
Hmm. Yeah, at the end
Um,
with the laundry day thing again.
Prince Maestro.
Right.
That's who I was. That's who we were trying to think of. Um, but oh, by the way, Laundry Day seems kind of OP.
Uh,
You're just like, oh, you're driving a god, boom, now you're out.
yeah, boom, laundry day. You can use it as
Uh-huh.
many times as you want. I mean, war crimes is OP, but you can't, yeah, there's a lot of restrictions around it.
Right, right.
But yeah, to your point, I, it does seem like after seven, a lot of the conflicts that have been set up have mostly been resolved.
Hmm.
And I mean, I guess, read book eight and see what happens next, but it does kind of move on to more of an end game type of thing at that point because Faction Wars was like a touch point that we were looking forward to for a long time in the series. It seemed like the resolution of a lot of stuff, and it was. And so it was successful in that way, but it still looking at Faction Wars, looking forward to book seven, it was really unclear how the book was going to end. But at the end of Faction Wars, then okay, here's kind of where we're going.
And I think maybe like part of the dissatisfaction with book seven is that like so many antagonists are like defeated, and some of them are, it's very quick. Like,
Hmm.
um,
Like
like
Donadia was one that was
yeah,
important. Yeah.
she was
Hmm.
defeated very quickly. I mean, the Skull Empire was defeated like pretty quickly. Pretty much the only one who's left is Prince Maestro, like we mentioned.
Hmm.
The Nagas, I guess that was a little bit more satisfying, because it like took a little bit more time. It was like a little bit of a mystery. But
Yeah.
it was a mystery to the readers. It wasn't really like a mystery to like the crawlers as much
Hmm.
because it's sort of like Carl, if I'm remembering correctly, he's like kind of narrating each step of the plan as it's happening. He's like, "Oh, and so this was Rosetta's theory. Like at this point, like the fairies are going to take her here, and so we teleport." you know.
Yeah. Which I
Um,
think works. I mean, as long as it's if it's not directly explained to the reader and then it's revealed and it seems kind of clever, like that's good with me.
yeah,
But yeah, this kind of gets back at one of my initial criticisms was Matt Dinniman is such a pantser, meaning, and like he said as much, where he just kind of writes out the seat of his pants and doesn't necessarily know how things are going to go. I feel like he set up a lot of stuff early on in the series, with really no clear idea where it was going, but knew it was something and continued to bring it up. And then it's been built up so much, and you have these expectations, and then a lot of it's just kind of resolved. And
right.
it seems a little flat because you're like, man, this thing's been important for books and books, and it's just like done. And that's not
Hmm.
always the case. I do think I mean, maybe it was unfortunate I used the Sepsis Horror Crown thing as the lead example because that did get like a decent amount of resolution. They had to do a lot of planning around it. They had the whole Naga plan and all that. But there were plenty of other things like the the whole like weird root vegetable thing that they got that seemed important just ended up being another, gimmicky thing that they used to get another ability. Didn't really have anything specific that did it. Even She Maria and the Bedlam Bride eye, like that hasn't really been all too massively important. Maybe still to be seen, but seemed like such a big deal. It's been important a couple times, but it's just hard to know when it and it feels a little unsatisfying with some of these things that have been they seem like Chekhov's gun, but then in the end they're just like, oh, and we're done with this now. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, but I mean, like she Maria hasn't totally been resolved. She's like asleep or sealed away in Carl,
Yeah,
but
yeah. So I guess
he
we'll give
still
that
might.
an incomplete mark, but based off how some other things have been resolved,
It's
like,
like,
do I have
yeah,
faith that it's going to be important enough? I don't know. It's been
at,
kind of a hit or miss with a lot of these things.
like at the ending of book six, where like she Maria basically like takes control over Carl and then
Hmm.
like plucks out Lee Jun's eye and eats it. Like you're like, oh man, this is gonna be a problem. Like having she Maria as part of Carl. And I mean, they did need to resolve it, but it wasn't like she like took over Carl like multiple times and caused issues with their plans or anything.
Hmm. Another one's Lucia Marr. Seems like, big mystery. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? Books and books and books and books. And I think we know what it is now with their connection to the kids and everything. She seems really important. Is it going to be resolved enough, or is she just going to like be safe somehow and everyone survives?
Yeah. One question I did have about Lucia Mar is like I understand how it's like, there's different kids that sometimes like take turns literally like controlling Lucia Mar, but is Lucia Mar herself like a character, a human?
I don't remember. I mean, now she has that race where she transforms between the two different.
Or yeah, I guess I mean not like was she human before the crawl started?
Yes, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyways, that was a small aside.
I mean, I guess we don't want to duplicate stuff at all, but I think we get a little more explanation in book eight.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so book seven, like we said, was crazy. Um, it's really hard to kind of separate things out. I did think through the first half or so, it was easier to follow. And then once we got into the whole rolling ball situation with the, never-ending climax, like
Uh-huh.
that, yeah, I think the last like
Yeah,
30-ish chapters or so, that's really where it kind of went off the rails for me.
it was yeah. Although, yeah, Princess Donut swatted them with the cat paw.
Which was pretty awesome visually and pretty
Hmm.
gross visually, but I mean, not to say this didn't deliver. It had the Dungeon Crawler Carl elements that we expect. it was just so much at once, and there were also so many characters running around, and they were all separated out across the map. And yeah, I mean, is it impossible to follow? No. Can, like, did we read the book? Did we understand what's going on? Yes. But at the same time, I don't think it's a good thing that you just have to like turn your brain off and be like, okay, this is all happening. It's all happening at the same time. It's very hard to track. Let's just go with it.
Hmm. But I mean, so I have a friend who started reading about the same time I did, and he
Hmm.
read books 1 through 7. 8 wasn't out yet, and then he reread books 1 through 7, and he mentioned like there were a lot of
Big fan.
things. Yeah,
Yeah.
he liked it a lot. There were a lot of things that he was picking up on, like kind of breadcrumbs that Matt Dinniman had, laid throughout the first few books. So once again, I mean, some of this could be, chalked up to the way we consume, listening to audiobooks on, faster than
Hmm.
1x speed. So we're not necessarily absorbing all the available information.
Yeah, there's some of that. I'm just not convinced that Dinneman is this master planner that's leaving breadcrumbs and had everything all planned out exactly how we wanted to so we could execute a big twist. I think is much more that like he's got an idea, he thinks this will pay off down the road, he throws it in, he continues to make it relevant as books go by, and then eventually is resolved. Which is
Have
not
you
like a terrible failing or anything, it's just not necessarily my favorite style.
Yeah, I mean, it's like maybe his strengths as an author are like he just writes like, he just thinks of the craziest things and, implements them into a series. Have you read Operation Bounce House?
I'm like halfway through right now, actually.
Do you know if is that similar in writing style where like you just kind of crazy things are happening or
It's not as crazy. It's
okay.
and it's not as funny either. It's more somber, darker. It's, I don't know, maybe more of what I was saying Dungeon Crawler Carl should have, like maybe like a marriage of the two, because I miss the humor. And like there, not that there's no humor. He's still a pretty funny author, but it's not nearly as unhinged, off the rails. And it's a different premise, so it's like purposely not, it doesn't have that the premise is we're on this other planet and people from Earth are renting out mechs virtually to go destroy the people on the planet. So they have to like survive this extinction event. So it's a ridiculous premise still, but it doesn't have the same absurdity as Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Okay. So maybe some of these things are intentional for this series, or
Yeah, I
he's
think that
learning and
100%
growing as
are.
an author.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the things that I don't like about Dungeon Crawler Carl, I think they're totally intentional decisions that also make the series work.
Hmm.
So it's hard because I like a lot of it, but also some things I don't like, but I'm not sure if you could really have one without the other or not.
It's, obviously, it's a popular series, so the decisions he's making with them
Yeah,
are
yeah, I think overall, it's great, but I'm not like a 10 out of 10 fanboy. I'm like a 8.5 out of 10 fanboy.
that's pretty dang good.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to point out that a lot of times in these reviews, like we intentionally nitpick things we don't like and talk about those a lot, maybe even more than we talk about things that we do like. So we can seem at times like we're being negative on the series, and we might not, even though we do like it more than
Mhm.
it might be, we might say it.
Yeah, that's a good call out. So we've got just a few minutes left. What were some of your high points of book seven?
Um, well, phew. So at the end with I'm trying to remember the name of that one guy who was basically doing surgery on himself and like trying to like combine himself with one of the like changelings to like
Yeah.
we're not really sure what he was doing exactly, but it seemed like he was about to finish it when Carl kind of killed him. I say kind of killed him. He did kill him, and so it's like, well, what was going on there? That was a little horrifying. Um, but I mean, like we talked about, the huge ball of people that's including like gods that's just getting rolled around, and you're like, and then there's the god who literally has like stolen the penis of another god, and they're fighting over it.
Hmm.
Um, just typical like Matt Dinniman stuff. Um, but it's at the end of is it at the end of book seven where we start seeing like gods outside of uh the crawl, outside of those levels? Or is that the end
Yeah.
of book six?
No, I'm pretty sure it's seven where along with the I could be wrong actually, but pretty sure. But along with that also just like breaks the nothing and Scolopendra awakes, right? And I
Hmm.
think the ending was really good in that book seven wrapped up so many things, so it also needed to start things for the last few books, and it did that really well.
Um, yes. The other kind of bomb drop that happens towards the end of book seven is that Carl's married, apparently. And you're
Hmm.
like, what? Did we miss something here? Like, is this something like from Carl's past that he didn't talk about? That was like a big question for me, leaving book seven, that I was like, I need this answered pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, and we get stuff on that in book eight. That was another one for me. I was like, is this important? Is it not? I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, overall, when I say book seven was disappointing, I think it's because I wanted more structure to faction wars. I wanted more consequence. All these things were resolved, and some of it was kind of resolved willy-nilly. But I
Hmm.
mean, it had the action, it had the craziness that we expected from, getting everyone onto the field. Just a little too unhinged for me. I think my favorite part of the book was we already mentioned this, but was the emotional stakes of Katya and
Hmm.
the way it set up her decision to leave the dungeon, save the kids, become pregnant with her backstory with Annie. Like that stuff was really good. And I think I really value those emotional stakes a lot.
Hmm.
And when stories don't have those as much, they kind of fall flat for me. So those are things I really, latch on to. And I thought that was pretty well done.
I also really enjoy like moments of like deepening relationship between Donut and Carl. It's like
Hmm.
their relationship has just become so like meaningful to them, that like they literally are like mean the world to each other. And so there's um I feel like maybe once in each book, like they like their trust kind of deepens. I think at the end of book seven, Carl gets rid of the ring of divine suffering.
Hmm.
Donut literally eats it, right?
Yeah.
So um that was
Yeah.
that was the moment in that book where Carl was listens to Donut, puts his trust in her, recognizes he's changing beyond like in a way that's not good.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the Carl and Donut moments as well. Usually when they're both feeling overwhelmed, and Donut especially will just kind of become non-responsive and really kind of overly traumatized, and they're able to lean on each other and get through those things.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, their relationship is good, and I think character growth in this series is kind of an interesting topic because maybe it's just kind of a strange series to have character growth in giving given the circumstances, but at least Donut and Carl, their relationship from beginning to end, I think has been pretty strong.
Yeah. It's a weird series to like judge by traditional metrics, I feel. Like, the traditional ways because it's just like such a non-traditional book. It's almost like you
Hmm.
need a different scale to um like truly judge it.
Right. And that's where I say when I have this criticism of it, just doesn't seem like it's fully planned out from beginning to end. Yeah, but at the same time, like, is that even feasible? Or if you do something like that, can you still have the level of creativity? Like, honestly,
Hmm.
probably not. I mean, who am I? I guess the comparison is Brandon Sanderson because he's got gazillion elements in his stories, and he does plan it out like this, and he has pretty good success with these twists and things that he set up. But I mean, not everyone is Brandon Sanderson. The guy, I mean, he's got strengths and weaknesses for that. I mean, but his strength is the regimented outlining and having things line up, but at the same time, his humor is nowhere
We
close
don't
to Matt
want, yeah,
Dinniman's.
we don't want. I, it would be it's much more interesting to read when authors play to their own strengths, right? Not try
Mm,
to.
yeah,
We
yeah,
don't want Matt Dinniman trying to be Brandon Sanderson or vice versa because it would probably end up poorly.
yeah.
So I'm much more happy that Matt Dinniman's introducing us to this new way of writing fantasy, or at least new to us.
Where nothing is off the table.
Yes.
Uh, all right, we'll do a review on book eight. This is going to be our first long wait in the series. Now we're having to
Mhm.
wait for, however long. I mean, I'm not even aware how long it takes for a Dungeon Crawler Carl book to come out because in my mind, they just all exist, but now they don't. And so we'll have to wait a little bit for DCC 9 and then 10, but at least we are close to the end here. So it shouldn't be too long.
If I had to guess, it'll probably be 2 to 3 years.
Especially with things heating up on the TV side and his popularity exploding, there's no way he's gonna. I mean, I know he wrote the initials pretty quickly and they were self-published initially, so there's no way he can keep up that pace. It's just reality of what it is. But, I'm willing to give him that time.
Yeah, for
He's
sure.
got some deserved success coming his way now.
I mean, he did write Operation Bounce House too, in between these two, I think 7 and 8. So
Yeah, that's true. That's 400 pages, so who knows? But yeah, if you want to chat with us, let us know what mistakes we made, etc., you can hop on our Discord. Invites are in the episode description below. And until next time, crawlers, go
kill,
out there
kill,
and kill,
kill.
kill, kill
Sorry, I stole your thunder.
in sync.